Hello everyone, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Congress at work, organization, and committees. Congress convenes. What comes to mind when you hear the word Congress? The Capitol? Your members of Congress? Some particular bill? Those senators and representatives you often see on the evening news? Of course you know that the nation's lawmaking body is much more than that. It is in fact a very complex enterprise, and much larger than most people realize. Some 30,000 men and women work for the legislative branch today, and Congress appropriates some $5 billion every year to finance its own many-sided operations. In 2011, Congressman Rick Crawford in the Senate here, and other Republican members of the 112th Congress, gathered to ask President Obama to present a written plan for dealing with the deficit. Opening day in the House. Every other January, the 435 men and women who have been elected to the House come together at the Capitol to begin a new term. At that point, they are, in effect, just so many representatives elect, because all 435 of its seats are up for election every 2 years. The House technically has no sworn members, no rules, and no organization until its opening day ceremonies are held. The clerk of the House in the preceding term presides at the beginning of the first day's session. The clerk calls the chamber to order and checks the roll of representatives-elect. Those members-to-be then choose a speaker who will be their permanent presiding officer. By custom, the speaker is a long-standing member of the majority party, and election on the floor is only a formality. The majority party's members in the House have settled the matter beforehand. The speaker then takes the oath of office. By tradition, the oath is administered by the Dean of the House, the member-elect with the longest record of service in the House. With that accomplished, the Speaker swears in the rest of the members as a body. The Democrats take their seats to the right of the center aisle, the Republicans to the left. Next, the House elects its clerk, parliamentarian, sergeant-at-arms, chief administrative officer, and chaplain. None of these people are members of the House, and their elections are also a formality. The majority party has already decided the matter. Then, the House adopts the rules that will govern its proceedings through the term. The rules of the House have been developing for over 200 years, and they are contained in a volume of about 400 pages. They are readopted, most often with little or no change, at the beginning of each term, though they are occasionally and sometimes extensively amended during a term. Thus, in 2009, the rules were amended to repeal a limit on the number of terms any member can chair any House committee. That controversial limit of 3 terms, or 6 years, had been adopted by a newly elected Republican majority at the beginning of the 104th Congress in 1995. Finally, members of the 20 permanent committees of the House are appointed by a floor vote. With that, the House is organized. So next we're going to talk about opening day in the Senate. The Senate is a continuous body. It has been organized without interruption since its first session in 1789. Recall that only 1/3 of the seats are up for election every 2 years. 2/3 of the Senate's membership is carried over from one term to the next. As a result, the Senate does not face large organizational problems at the beginning of a term. Its first day session is nearly always fairly short and routine, even when the elections have brought a change in the majority party. Newly elected and re-elected members must be sworn in, vacancies in Senate organization and on committees must be filled, and a few other details attended to. So, the Senate is not necessarily, it's not a big deal whenever they have to reorganize. It's actually a pretty fairly short process. The House of Representatives, on the other hand, it takes a bit longer. State of the Union message. When the Senate is notified that the House of Representatives is organized, a joint committee of the 2 chambers is appointed and instructed to wait upon the President of the United States and inform him that a quorum of each House is assembled and that the Congress is ready to receive any communication he may be pleased to make. Within a few weeks, in late January or early February, the President delivers the annual State of the Union message to a joint session of Congress. The speech is a major political event and is based on this constitutional command. He shall from time to time give to the Congress information of the state of the Union, and recommend to their consideration such measures as he shall judge necessary and expedient. Article 2, Section 3. So, the State of the Union address is a speech that the President gives to members of Congress where the President talks about what his goals and what he wants for the coming year. He kind of lays out his goals, his plans, and people really look to the State of the Union address as kind of like a sign of things to come, what they can expect from the upcoming year. So it is a major event, and that is the way it is carried over. What is that? Oh, there we go. Fixed it. In the address, the President reports on the state of the nation as he or she sees it, in both domestic and foreign policy terms. The message is widely covered by the news media, and it is very closely followed both here and abroad. In fact, the Chief Executive's speech is such a message to the American people and to the world as it is an address to Congress. In it, the President lays out the broad shape of the policies the administration expects to follow, and the course the Chief Executive has charted for the nation. The message regularly includes a number of specific legislative recommendations, along with a plea that Congress will enact them. Its presentation is soon followed by scores of bills drawn up in the executive branch and introduced in the House and Senate by various members of the President's party. With the conclusion of the speech, the joint session is adjourned. Each House then separately turns to the legislative business that will come before it. The presiding officers. The Constitution provides for the presiding officers of each House of Congress, the Speaker of the House and the President of the Senate. Article 1, Section 2, Clause 5 directs that the House of Representatives shall choose their Speaker and other officers. And Article 1, Section 3, Clause 4 declares the Vice President of the United States shall be the President of the Senate. House Speaker John Boehner of Ohio displays his gavel during the first session of the 112th Congress. The House of Representatives elects the Speaker on the first day of every new Congress. Now, John Boehner is the name of the man in the picture here. He was Speaker of the House during President Obama's term in office. The Speaker of the House. Of the two positions, the Speaker of the House is by far the more important and more powerful within the halls of Congress. This is particularly so because the Speaker is both the elected presiding officer of the House and the acknowledged leader of its majority party. Although neither the Constitution nor its own rules require it, the House has always chosen the Speaker from among its own members. Today, the post is held by Nancy Pelosi. The Speaker is expected to preside in a fair and judicious manner, and regularly does. The Speaker is also expected to aid the fortunes of the majority party and its legislative goals, and regularly does that too. Nearly all of the Speaker's powers revolve around two duties: to preside and to keep order. The Speaker chairs most sessions of the House, but often appoints another member as temporary presiding officer. No member may speak until he or she is recognized by the Speaker. The presiding officer also interprets and applies the rules, refers bills to committee, rules on points of order, puts motions to a vote, and declares the outcome of most votes taken on the floor of the House. The Speaker also names the members of all select and conference committees and must sign all bills and resolutions passed by the House. As an elected member of the House, the Speaker may debate and vote on any matter before that body. That seldom happens, but when it does, the Speaker appoints another member as the temporary presiding officer, and he or she then occupies the Speaker's chair. The Speaker does not often vote, and the House rules say only that the Speaker must vote to break a tie. Notice then that because a tie vote defeats a question, the Speaker occasionally votes to cause a tie, and so defeat a proposal. The President of the Senate. The Constitution makes the Vice President the President of the Senate, the Senate's presiding officer. This means that, 1. Unlike the House, the Senate does not choose its own presiding officer, And 2, unlike the Speaker of the House, the Senate's presiding officer is not in fact a member of that body. Indeed, the Vice President might not even be a member of the party that controls the Senate. So it is possible for the President of the Senate to be from another political party than what the majority Senate, what party makes up the majority of the Senate. All this adds up to the major reason why the Vice President plays a much less powerful role in the Senate than that played by the Speaker in the House. Also note this important point. The Vice President's career path, the route traveled to the post, is a much different path than the one the Speaker has followed. The Vice President has not become the Senate's presiding officer out of long service in that body. He has instead come to the post out of a much different process. The President of the Senate does have the usual powers of a presiding officer, to recognize members, put questions to a vote, and so on. However, the Vice President cannot take the floor to speak or debate and may vote only to break a tie. So, in a normal Senate vote, the Vice President does not cast a vote. The Vice President will only cast a vote whenever they are needed to break a tie. So, they will have the tiebreaker vote, but they do not regularly vote. Any influence a Vice President may have in the Senate is largely the result of personal abilities and relationships. Several of the more recent Vice Presidents came to that office from the Senate. Harry Truman, Alvin Barkley, Richard Nixon, Lyndon Johnson, Hubert Humphrey, Walter Mondale, Dan Quayle, Al Gore, and Joe Biden. Each was able to build at least some power into the position out of that earlier experience. Also, our current Vice President, Kamala Harris, was a senator before she became President of the Senate, so she would be able to be added to that list as well. Senate President pro tempore. The Senate does have another presiding officer, the President pro tempore, who serves in the Vice President's absence. The President pro tempore, or President pro tem for short, is elected by the Senate itself and is always a leading member of the majority party, usually its longest serving member. In 2013, the post was occupied by Senator Patrick Leahy. Senator Leahy, who was elected to his first term in the upper house in 1974, became President pro tempore in 2012. And Patrick Leahy is currently the President pro tempore. The President pro tempore follows the Speaker of the House in the line of presidential succession. Other senators do frequently preside over the Senate on a temporary basis. Newly elected members regularly do so early in their term. So, when it talks about the line of presidential succession, that means that after the Vice President, if there was some sort of terrible event where both the President and Vice President were both unable to fulfill their duties, the Speaker of the House would move up and become the new President. Now, God forbid something were to happen to President, Vice President, and Speaker of the House, then it falls to President pro tempore. Now, it keeps on going down and down and down, and again, between different departments and secretaries and all of that on who would become the president next. There's a long list. Now, it would have to be a pretty terrible event to have it fall down to one of these lower offices that instantly become the president. So, you might be wondering, well, let's say that does happen and the Speaker of the House becomes the president, because both the president and vice president are incapacitated at the same time, meaning that they are not able for one reason or another to fulfill their office. Well, who becomes vice president then? Does it just shift up? Does the president pro tempore shift up? And the answer to that question is no. Whenever a president has to be removed and the vice president moves up, or if they both have to be removed and the Speaker of the House moves up, the person that becomes the president then chooses a vice president with congressional approval. So that is how that process works. Okay guys, that's going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, you know how to get a hold of me. I hope everybody's having a great day, and I'll see you again real soon. Bye.